Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the soft crunch of sand under your feet, the faint scent of rosewater in the air, and a strange sort of hush broken only by the rustle of leaves that, oddly enough, aren't wilting. Welcome to an ancient Persian garden, but don't let the calm fool you. This place wasn't built just for lounging. You're in one of the hottest, driest regions on Earth, and yet, your shirt isn't sticking to your back. That's not magic. That's wind, designed wind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And feel free to drop your location and the local time in the comments. Let's see how far across the globe this breeze travels. Now dim the lights, maybe fluff your pillows, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forward. The dust is fine, pale and dry, but it doesn't rise in a choking cloud. It settles quietly, as if even the dirt knows not to disturb this perfect little oasis. Your path is lined with date palms, tall, feathered and rustling like they're whispering secrets. Each one is spaced deliberately, casting shade in narrow bands across the stone path. You reach up and pluck a small, dry fruit. It's warm from the sun and sticky sweet. Welcome to a Persian paradise, designed not for show but for survival. The temperature drops as you move deeper, not drastically, but enough to notice. 5 degrees. Maybe 10. It's subtle and sly, like a secret you're only just being let in on. And while it may sound dramatic to say it, you probably wouldn't survive out here without it. The garden is known as a paradiser. Yes, the same word that gave us paradise. But don't picture clouds and harps, picture geometry. You're standing inside a living square, or sometimes a rectangle, precisely divided into 4 quadrants by flowing water. This style is called Chaharabagh, meaning 4 gardens, and it's been copied from Morocco to India ever since. At the centre is a small octagonal fountain. The sound is constant, but never loud, like a trickle of thoughts you haven't finished thinking. The water sparkles under the sun, reflecting the vines clinging to the walls, grapes, jasmine, and some plant whose name you don't know, but whose scent follows you like a gentle reminder to slow down. And here's the thing, none of this is accidental. Not the layout, not the water, not even that breeze brushing your face just now. You glance toward a stone bench, and an old man in a linen robe nods at you knowingly. He fans himself lazily with a palm leaf, but you get the sense he's doing it for ceremony more than comfort. The real fan is the garden itself. Mainstream historians agree. This level of environmental manipulation, this choreographed coolness, is one of the most impressive feats of Persian engineering. And they pulled it off using tools most people wouldn't use to build a treehouse today. But how? You move along the perimeter wall, noting how thick it is, cool to the touch, even though it's baked under the same sun as you. The wall breaks briefly for an arched doorway, its frame casting long shadows like fingers pointing you deeper. Here's your first fun tidbit. Ancient Persian builders sometimes rubbed their outer walls with a slurry of crushed oyster shells and clay to reflect heat. Did it sparkle? Probably. Did it work? Historians still argue whether it was more aesthetic or effective. You continue walking. There's a silence to this place, but it's not empty. It's intentional. Even the birds seem to chirp in moderation. Every corner you turn leads to another small discovery, a hidden bench under a fig tree, a windowless alcove where light somehow dances, a patch of lilies that bloom only when no one's looking. And then you realize, this isn't a garden despite the desert. It's a garden because of it. You see, the Persian climate forced creativity. When you don't have easy access to water, wind, or chill, you don't just suffer, you invent. And sometimes you accidentally make something so peaceful it survives for thousands of years. You pause at a rectangular pool about the length of a small school bus, if buses had ever been invented here. The water is shallow, almost still, but it amplifies the wind in the strangest way. As a breeze skims across its surface, it cools and carries that chill right to your cheeks. The Persians called it ab anbar, a water reservoir. But here, it's more like air conditioning with poetry. The deeper you wander, the more it becomes obvious. This whole place was planned backwards. They didn't start with flowers and add in comfort. They started with unbearable heat and built a garden around surviving it. And if you're thinking, well, of course, people adapt to their environments. Yes, you're right. But how many people do it with fountains, mosaics, and scented shade? Now take a slow breath. Smell that? That's saffron and dust. A strange mix, but oddly calming. Like the desert version of Grandma's kitchen. You sit at the edge of a sunken walkway, legs dangling, and suddenly, even though it's midday, you start to feel sleepy. The temperature, the scent, the breeze, it's all conspiring to hush your thoughts. But just beneath your feet, something ancient stirs. You swing your legs gently, tracing lazy circles in the warm air above the stone. Beneath your feet lies something older than most cities you've ever heard of, a secret network that flows unseen, like underground veins feeding the body of this impossibly calm garden. The caretaker, still lounging in the shade like someone who's seen too many summers to be impressed by another, tilts his head toward the earth beneath you. "Kanat," he says, in a voice like dry paper folding. Just that one word. You say nothing, but he knows you don't know. So, he waves you over with the palm fan and slowly rises with a creak that might be from his bones or the stone seat. He points to a low, round opening in the ground behind a row of pomegranates, so subtle you'd have missed it without guidance. You peer into it. It's deep, so deep your breath catches, a perfectly circular shaft cut into the earth, lined with stones and vanishing into darkness. Cool air rises from it like a ghost sighing. This is your introduction to the Kanat, one of the most brilliant, bizarre, and frankly exhausting engineering systems ever invented. Here's how it works. Centuries ago, workers, probably barefoot, probably grumbling, dug a mother well into the mountains, tapping into an aquifer. Then they dug an underground tunnel, gently sloped all the way down to the garden, allowing water to flow by gravity alone. No pumps, no motors, just slope, patience, and the kind of spatial awareness that would give a modern engineer a tension headache. And these weren't short projects. Some kanats stretch over 50 kilometers, with vertical shafts every few hundred feet, so the diggers could breathe and haul out dirt. It was a job for the desperately brave or the woefully underpaid. Probably both. Your foot slips slightly on a smooth stone as you lean forward again. You catch yourself just in time. Falling in would be a one-way trip to very slow learning. Quirk of the night. Some ancient builders intentionally curved their kanat tunnels just slightly, so thieves couldn't see the source of the water and sabotage it. The curves were strategic and subtle, like a secret in plain sight. Historians still argue whether this technique originated in Western Iran, or if it travelled along trade routes from even earlier Mesopotamian channels. Either way, it's older than most religions, and still functions in parts of Iran today. You walk beside a shallow channel now, its water trickling like it's narrating the story in its own dialect. The sound is gentle, constant, never intrusive. You trail your fingers in it, and the temperature difference makes your hand tingle. It's cold, shockingly cold, despite the punishing sun above. This was one of the secrets of Persian cooling. Store water underground, insulate it with earth, and channel it into homes, mosques, and gardens, where it quietly did its job. And sometimes they stored it in a massive, dome-like structure called an abanbar, built partly underground, with walls lined in special mortar made from lime, sand, ash, and egg whites. Yes, egg whites. Apparently, ancient cooling also smelled faintly of omelettes. You pass one of these domes now. It looms quietly near the garden wall, its upper dome barely peeking over the trees. It's thick-walled and silent, a place where water waits in darkness until it's needed. You sit beside it. There's no door, at least not on this side, but you can hear it. Water, somewhere deep inside, echoing, moving slowly, like it's dreaming. Someone once said a well is not just a hole but a promise. You can't help but feel that applies here. The caretaker returns, this time carrying a clay cup. He hands it to you without a word. You sip. The water is astonishing, cool, slightly mineral, with the earthy taste of a story told through stone. It's better than any bottled water you've had, and definitely more committed. He gestures toward the breeze that's now drifting more purposefully through the olive trees. All connected, he says, and pats the ground like a proud grandfather. And he's right. You're starting to understand the choreography. The kanat brings the water, the channels guide it, the pools reflect it, and the wind. The wind is still coming. You're just at the beginning. You lie back for a moment on a smooth stone ledge, arms behind your head. The sky is impossibly blue, and not a single bird is flapping by in haste. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts getting softer. A dry breeze moves across your face, and for the first time, you don't question where it came from. You know now, it was invited. You remember something the caretaker said earlier, maybe not in words, but in his manner, that everything here has a reason, that the path of the water was carved long before anyone thought about the shape of the garden, that survival in this place was earned through precision, patience, and stone. And yet it doesn't feel like a survival structure. It feels like a dream, built out of equations. You rise slowly, legs brushing against the warm stone, and wander farther down the gravel path. The garden opens like a soft breath. A wide square, almost mathematical in its perfection, sprawls before you, bordered by rows of cypress trees that stand stiff as palace guards. It's a scene that feels both ancient and eerily modern, as if some early architect had a taste for symmetry and serenity, and a secret obsession with right angles. At first, you think it's just beautiful, but then you begin to notice it's not just for show. Everything is placed with intention. The trees are staggered just enough to break the wind and cast interlacing shadows that shift with the sun. The water channels divide the quadrants perfectly, always moving, never stagnant, never wasteful. And every shaded bench, every plant bed, every low wall aligns with a greater whole. You're standing in a blueprint, not just a garden. The Chaharbagh, or four-part garden, isn't a random layout. It's a philosophy. You don't build one of these unless you believe in structure. Not just physical, but cosmic. The four water channels aren't just irrigation. They symbolize the rivers of paradise mentioned in the Quran. The square form reflects the balance of the universe. And at the center, often, was a pavilion or a fountain, a reminder of divine stillness in the midst of life's movement. Of course, you're not required to believe any of this. But as you stand there, sun warming the top of your head and cool wind grazing your neck, it's hard not to feel aligned. Mainstream historians love pointing out how these gardens weren't only religious metaphors or royal indulgences, they were political statements. To build one meant you had resources, control, and a relationship with nature that leaned more on command than coexistence. But don't worry, no pop quizzes here. You follow the stream along one quadrant and notice something odd. The path curves ever so slightly before straightening again. It seems out of character for such a precise space. A quirky fact for tonight. Persian garden architects often intentionally added a curve or asymmetry, not for function, but for aesthetic relief. Too much perfection, they believed, made people uneasy. A small flaw made the design feel more human. Even paradise needs a little humility. You step beneath an arbor covered in climbing vines. Grapes, maybe? Or something local you don't recognize. A cat stirs from a shady patch and watches you with mild disapproval, as if you're 5 minutes late to a tour you didn't know was scheduled. As you walk, your feet sink slightly into baked clay paths. The scent of warm earth mixes with jasmine and something herbal, perhaps basil, or one of the many medicinal plants tucked discreetly around the garden. You pause beside a pomegranate tree. The fruit here is strange, smaller, darker. The caretaker appears again, seemingly from nowhere, and breaks one open with practiced ease. He hands you a handful of the glistening red seeds, and you crunch them thoughtfully. Sweet, tart, alive. He gestures to the far end of the garden, where a low stone structure rises with columns and shadows. You walk toward it. It's not a temple, but it has the hush of one. 4 columns, an open ceiling, a shallow stone basin in the middle, fed by a quiet trickle from an unseen spout. This is the center. From here, You can see how everything converges. The channels, the trees, the shadows, the wind. And suddenly, standing in the middle, you feel it. The temperature drops, not dramatically, but noticeably. This is no illusion. You're in the thermal heart of the garden. Everything around you has been orchestrated to funnel breeze and cool air right here. A convergence of water, wind, and shadow. The geometry doesn't just look good, it works. Historians still debate whether these garden layouts originated purely from Zoroastrian principles of harmony, or if they were a more practical evolution from irrigation systems. Some argue the aesthetics came later, after the plumbing. Others say the symbolism came first, and the physics followed. You're not here to pick sides. You're here to be chilled. Politely, of course. A bee drifts past your ear, lazy with nectar and heat. The sound of water behind you begins to feel like language, repetitive, musical, soothing. Your fingers brush over a carved inscription in the stone wall beside the pavilion. The letters are ancient Persian script, but you don't need to read them to understand. Someone once stood here, just like you, marveling at the cool in the middle of the desert. You sit on the stone bench and lean back. The air moves like silk around you. And for the first time in a long while, you stop trying to think. The silence is no longer silence. It's design, a kind of hush that settles not from emptiness, but from things working so well they don't have to make noise about it. You're still seated at the center of the garden, in that columned space with its shallow basin, when a new sound approaches. Not loud, but distinct, the whoosh of moving air. You stand, slowly, and turn toward the far edge of the garden, where a tall, rectangular structure looms behind a wall of reeds and fig trees. It looks like a tower, though there are no bells, no guards, no birds perched at the top. Just slotted openings near the upper corners, facing multiple directions. This, you're told by the caretaker's raised eyebrow and subtle nod, is the badger, the wind catcher. You walk toward it, the breeze becoming more assertive with each step. The structure is tall, almost overconfident, with vents cut into its crown like open mouths waiting to taste the sky, the ancient Persian air conditioner. And unlike the noisy, clunky machines you know today, this one doesn't hum. It whispers. A gust brushes past your face. It's cool, not wintry, not artificial, just refreshing, as though the desert itself just exhaled. Here's the beauty of it. The badger doesn't create wind, it borrows it. It captures the breeze from above and funnels it downward through internal shafts. Depending on the temperature and direction, it might use one vent and seal the others. Some towers even split the airflow, creating pressure that pushes hot air out, while cool air settles in. All without electricity, just geometry and gravity. Mainstream fact, this design dates back over 2,000 years and was used across the Persian Empire, from Yazd to Bam, long before Europeans were insulating their castles with tapestries and hopeful prayers. You step inside the base of the wind catcher. The temperature drops again. Not like a blast, but like sinking into a pool where the water is just right. You hear the breeze now, traveling through the vertical tunnel above, gentle, persistent, soothing. It strokes the walls and curves, engineered for just this sound. Here's a quirky gem. Some elite buildings had double or even triple wind catchers, arranged like orchestras of air. The richer you were, the more directions your house could breathe. You stand quietly in the middle of the chamber, feeling the airflow brush the back of your neck. It's almost meditative. No fans, no motors, just math and mortar. And then, something unexpected. The wind isn't just cool, it's fragrant. You step back out and realize why. Just outside, aligned with the wind catcher's base, is a small herb garden, mint, basil, and wild rue. The air passes over it before entering the tower, picking up notes of green and spice. You're literally breathing in the garden's memory. Historians still argue whether this scenting trick was intentional design, or a happy accident of proximity. Some suggest elite families grew their herbs there deliberately to make indoor air smell cleaner. Others believe it simply grew where water and shade were most available. Either way, you're benefiting. You turn a slow circle inside the tower's chamber, arms half raised like you're waiting for some priest of air to arrive. But the wind is the priest. It blesses your forehead, your arms, your sigh. The caretaker calls softly, no urgency, just ceremony. You walk back toward him, eyes blinking from the sudden sunlight. You realize now why the walls of the garden were so thick. Some had channels carved inside them where wind and water passed in secret. A living, breathing structure. As you walk, you pass a long corridor lined with mosaic tiles. Deep blue, ochre, soft green, they shimmer in the light. But they're not just decoration. Fun fact: glazed tiles near entryways or wind passages weren't merely aesthetic. They helped cool the air by absorbing moisture and reflecting light. The smoother the tile, the faster the breeze glided past it. And sometimes, the tiles sang. Well, sort of. Some wind catchers were designed with narrow chutes that created harmonics when the wind passed through at certain speeds. A low, constant tone. Some said it was soothing. Others called it eerie. You pass one such passage now, and yes, it hums, like a sleeping animal, or a memory. You reach another shaded bench, and again, the caretaker is waiting. This time, he's brought you a rolled scroll. He unrolls it wordlessly on the stone. It's a diagram, old, faded, but clearly a cross-section of the garden and the wind catcher. It looks like lungs, or maybe a musical instrument. You stare at it. He nods. Breath, he says simply. The house breathes. You sit again, now fully aware that what you thought was just an outdoor lounge was actually the result of centuries of experiments in temperature, flow, scent, and space. A place designed to breathe with you. And as the breeze lifts a few strands of your hair, you feel lighter. A little like wind yourself. The corridor curves around a cluster of tall reeds, and for a while you walk without speaking. Even the caretaker stays behind, as if this stretch is meant to be experienced in solitude. The gravel path is soft and the world narrows, only wind, stone, and the shuffle of your steps. Then you emerge into another space. This one's quieter, more enclosed. A low rectangular courtyard with shallow pools sunk into its tiled floor. The air here doesn't feel like it's drifting. It feels like it's resting. You crouch beside one of the pools. The surface is like glass, barely rippling. You dip your fingers in. It's cooler than you expected, cooler than outside, and above a shaded awning breaks the sun into soft, dappled shapes on the stone. You're not in a decorative corner, you're in a cooling engine. This is the science of shade and silence, and here the design becomes personal. It's not about surviving the heat, it's about soothing the spirit. Every detail whispers intention. Mainstream fact. These shallow pools, often called hows, served more than aesthetic purposes. They were placed precisely to cool the air via evaporation. As wind passed across the water's surface, it picked up moisture, lowering the ambient temperature in the space. Simple physics. But here, physics feels like kindness. You settle onto the edge of the nearest house, legs dangling over the water. A slow breeze moves through one of the arched colonnades, catching the scent of a fig tree and drawing it across the courtyard like a lullaby. The silence is not empty, it's cultivated. You realize the garden uses walls to bounce sound gently, just as it uses them to redirect wind. There's no echo, no harshness. Everything is round, soft, forgiving. Quirky addition. Some Persian garden architects embedded acoustic tiles made of clay in their domes and walkways. These weren't just for cooling, they were tuned to soften sound, so conversations and footsteps wouldn't reverberate. The result? A space where even whispers feel intentional. You listen now. Really listen. And you hear. Not much. A cicada chirps. Water drips. Somewhere, A palm frond shifts in the breeze. That's it. It's like the garden is editing the world for you. A movement catches your eye. A small bird dipping into one of the pools, flapping once, then flying off. Even the wildlife seems unhurried here. You stroll under the archways. Their curves are designed for both shade and airflow. They create small microclimates where the temperature might drop a few degrees without any mechanical intervention. You pause in one of these alcoves and feel it immediately. The shift. A tiny chill, a moment of relief. And then, because the garden has a sense of humor, you step just outside the shadow and the heat returns. Not fiercely, just enough to remind you who's in charge. Historians still debate whether these cooling techniques were discovered through trial and error or passed down through architectural guilds and royal engineers. Some argue it was poets and philosophers who first envisioned these spaces, borrowing ideas from sacred geometry and spiritual texts. Others insist it was farmers, ordinary people, who needed to protect their water, shade their goats, and not die of sunstroke. The scholarly arguments are as old as the dust in your sandals, but you, right now, are just grateful it exists. You sit beneath a wisteria trellis, watching shadows dance across the patterned tile beneath your feet. The breeze here doesn't need speed. It moves deliberately, lovingly, like it's circling you. You rest your head back against the cool stone, and that's when you notice it. The sound of nothing. Not absence, but presence. The walls around you are doing their job. They aren't just barriers, they're instruments. They're catching wind, guiding light, muffling noise, amplifying coolness. Even the shapes matter. Many Persian gardens used a mix of square, hexagonal and octagonal motifs, each one breaking up airflow in subtle ways. The 8-sided patterns especially helped disperse heat and wind evenly. Like a fan, drawn in stone. You open your eyes slowly and spot a narrow channel in the floor. A carved groove leading water from one pool to another. You trace it with your toe. The water moves gently, purposefully, humming to itself. And just when you think the silence can't deepen, a shadow stretches over you. It's the caretaker again, holding something in both hands. A clay bowl, pale and sweating. He sets it down beside you and gives a small bow, then disappears, mischievous as ever. You peer into the bowl. It's a drink, cold, translucent, rose-coloured. You lift it to your lips and sip. The taste is light, floral, chilled. A perfect balance of sugar and something sharper, maybe sour cherry or a hint of cardamom. It's sherbet. Not the sherbet bowl now sits empty beside you, cool even in its silence. You draw a finger around its rim, still tasting that whisper of rosewater and something citrusy that you can't quite name. Whatever it was, it worked. Your whole body feels lighter, slower, slightly smug, if we're being honest. You rise and follow the garden's edge, where a narrow corridor of stone pavers leads you around the central fountain. But instead of the open garden, you veer into a narrower, shaded path, one the caretaker clearly intended you to find. It opens into a small courtyard. This one is different, intimate, tucked away like a secret the garden doesn't share with every visitor. And here, the cooling isn't left to water or geometry alone. It's in the walls themselves. You step up to a smooth curved surface, tiled in earth tones, burnt orange, cobalt blue, and a quiet green like sun-faded leaves. The surface is cool. You press your palm against it, then your cheek. Even your breath comes out a little foggy against it. This isn't just pretty tile. This is passive temperature regulation, Persian style. Mainstream historians call it a marvel of material science. These clay tiles, glazed and sometimes fired with mineral powders, were designed to radiate heat slowly. They absorbed warmth during the day, and gave it off during the night. In winter, they helped trap heat inside. In summer, they made your forehead say thank you. You step closer and notice patterns within the tile work, swirling shapes that look like wind and water frozen mid-dance. At the corners of the room, the walls are curved rather than angular. This isn't an aesthetic fluke, it's air management. The curves guide the breeze, soften echoes, and in some cases, help deflect heat from key areas. And yes, that includes bedrooms, because here's your quirky tidbit of the evening. Some wealthier Persian homes were designed with wind chambers, tiny alcoves with curved walls and water features meant specifically for cooling pillows and bed linens before sleep. Not the entire room, just the space around your dreaming head. That's right, people 2,000 years ago were chilling their sheets like royalty. Because they were royalty, or at least had royal aspirations. As you walk through the corridor, you hear something unexpected. A note, just one. A soft hum, rising and falling like a breath drawn through stone reeds. You pause, then hear it again. You follow the sound to a vent near the floor. It's narrow and round, barely wide enough for a child's arm. A low, consistent tone issues from it. Not musical exactly, but tonal, like wind taught to sing. And this isn't an accident. You found a wall designed to whisper. Scholars still debate how intentional this was. Some believe it was just the natural result of pressure changes and cleverly placed ducts. Others argue these tones were deliberately crafted by angling vents and curves to create soothing frequencies like early architectural ASMR. Either way, it works. You sit again on a bench lined with cushions, so worn they seem fused with the stone. The hum continues behind you. It's hypnotic, like the garden has decided to sing you to sleep. You look up. Above you, a lattice roof lets in slices of light, not full beams, just suggestions of sunlight, which shift throughout the day like a sundial designed for dreamers. Vines stretch lazily over the gaps, releasing faint hints of grape and dust. To your left, a wall painted in faded ochre bears something unexpected. Faint handprints, child-sized, maybe ceremonial, maybe just curious kids centuries ago. Either way, they're here. Ghosts of people who once cooled their heels on this same stone, hiding from the same sun. The caretaker returns, now munching on something crunchy, perhaps almonds or dried mulberries. He offers you a handful and points upward, toward a vent tucked high into the corner of the wall. Another Badgira, smaller than the last but still quietly at work. You munch thoughtfully. And then he points again, this time to a narrow hallway behind the tile wall. Curiosity wins. You follow. It leads to a long, vaulted room with thick walls, low seating, and a central depression in the floor where another shallow pool glistens. The air is even cooler here. You look up and spot a hidden windshaft, not visible from outside, guiding air into the chamber and letting it exit through a high slit. This is a sardab, a traditional Persian underground summer room, literally translated as cold place. You step down into it, and immediately it lives up to its name. The cool hits your ankles first, then your chest. It's like stepping into a memory of spring during the height of summer. Sardabs were often where families gathered at midday, where elders napped, and where meals were taken without sweat or sound. They were sometimes lined with salt bricks to purify the air and absorb excess moisture. One legend says that poets composed their best verses in sardabs, partly because of the calm, partly because it was the only place where your ink didn't dry out in 3 seconds flat. You take a seat, and for the next few minutes, nothing moves. Except the air, and your breath, and maybe, just maybe, the walls themselves, humming that quiet lullaby, designed for no other reason than to help. The sardab leaves a mark on your senses. Not a physical impression, but a kind of hush that lingers, even as you return to the surface. Your skin, now used to the coolness below, tingles when kissed again by the dry sun above. You stretch your limbs, shake the stiffness from your legs, and find yourself wandering back into the main garden, trailing one hand along the wall as though it might whisper more secrets if coaxed politely. The air feels familiar now, like an old friend. You start noticing patterns, where the shade falls, where the breeze bends. But there's still more to this living blueprint than meets the eye. As you pass under another stone arch, you step into a shaded corridor lined with singing tiles. Not metaphorically, actual sound-making tiles. You pause, press your ear close. A soft series of tones, like a wind chime in a dream. These are guzar tiles, glazed clay plates placed near ventilation shafts or narrow corridors, some flat, some slightly ridged. As air passed across them, their unique shapes produced resonant frequencies. It's music. Ancient HVAC music. And while no two gardens had exactly the same tone, some were designed to hum at low, calming pitches. The Persians understood something we've only recently rediscovered. Sound can cool you, not by temperature, but by suggestion. A quiet place feels cooler than a loud one. And this garden knows how to stay very quiet. The walls here aren't just barriers. They're tools. They curve slightly, which you now realize isn't a fluke. The inward-leaning corners help funnel air downward and dampen noise. The result is a room where whispers are crisp and echoes are swallowed whole. Mainstream historical fact: some Persian palaces had entire chambers tuned acoustically, so that a whisper from one corner could be heard clearly across the room, but only there. Visitors often marveled, or panicked, at these sonic tricks. Was it sorcery? Nope, just geometry. You cross into another chamber, semi-open, with alternating patches of sunlight and leaf shadow dappling the tiled floor. The walls are decorated with alternating tiles, smooth, glossy ones that reflect light, and matte ones that absorb it, creating a gentle checkerboard of warmth and coolness. Here's tonight's oddity. Some scholars believe the arrangement of these tiles helped guide airflow by subtly influencing temperature gradients in a room. Others think it was just good design taste. The truth? Historians still argue whether this was science, symbolism, or just showing off. You sit on a narrow ledge under one of the domes and stretch your legs. Then you hear it again. The hum. A low, consistent frequency, barely perceptible until you tune everything else out. The caretaker appears, not beside you this time, but several meters away near a lattice window. He waves a hand, motioning you over, then simply disappears behind a carved wooden screen. You follow. What you find is another chamber, smaller, circular, and strange. The breeze here is active, swirling. You see a narrow slit in the upper dome, and below it, a curved wall leading the wind into a side corridor. The design creates a spiraling airflow. It doesn't just move, it dances. You close your eyes. The effect is oddly hypnotic. The way the air wraps around the room, lifting your hair in small, playful twirls, as if the wind itself is gently teasing you for taking so long to arrive. You remember something from earlier, the whispering walls. This must be one of them. Walls designed to murmur as the breeze slips past them. Not loud, not obvious, but comforting, like fabric brushing against your skin. You sit back against one of those curved tiles and feel a vibration, just a hum, and you realize, you're not imagining it, these walls are breathing. Some believe Persian builders used narrow ceramic pipes embedded in walls to shift airflow and create specific pitches. Others say it was natural resonance amplified by architecture. Either way, your ribcage seems to fall into rhythm with the sound. Your breathing slows. And that's when the caretaker returns. This time, he carries not food or drink, but perfume. A small clay flask, stoppered with wax. He uncorks it and waves it gently. The breeze carries the scent to you. Sandalwood, maybe saffron, a little musk. Persians, it turns out, were among the earliest to cool their air with scent. Garden designers placed bowls of aromatics or soaked fabrics near wind catchers, so that the air arriving indoors didn't just refresh, it enchanted. You take the flask, hold it to your chest. It's not strong, just enough to thread a memory into the wind. And now the air you breathe isn't just cool, it smells like stories. You rest your head against the tile once more and close your eyes, letting the wind do what it was designed to do. calm, cool, carry you. Not out, but deeper in. You wake, or maybe you weren't sleeping, just caught between thoughts, to the faint rustle of sandals on stone. The caretaker has returned, this time not alone. Behind him walks a group of figures dressed in loose silks and embroidered robes, their laughter muted, their steps unhurried. A servant adjusts a canopy. Another carries a tray of chilled fruit. A royal visit. It's summer in the desert, and the court has arrived for their annual escape from the sun's tyranny. And you're standing, well, lounging, right in the middle of it. Don't worry, no one minds. You're part of the landscape now, just another cooled creature beneath the wisteria. You watch as the figures settle onto shaded benches. A young prince drapes himself beside a flowing channel and dangles his fingers in the water. A lady fans herself with a palm frond paddle, not out of desperation but with a theatrical flair. A poet, because of course there's a poet, unrolls a scroll and begins muttering lines to the breeze. You're witnessing a royal ritual, a Persian summer retreat, held not in the palace but in the garden. These weren't just picnics, they were performances of balance, between man and nature, heat and cool, order and relaxation. Mainstream historical fact. Many Persian rulers, including the Achaemenids and later the Safavids, built seasonal palaces around garden complexes known as bagh. These were not afterthoughts but essential seasonal infrastructure, complete with pavilions, bathing rooms, and intricate cooling systems. You watch as attendants prepare something curious, a large ceramic bowl filled with water and petals? No, not petals. Slivers of fruit, herbs, and something crystalline. Ice? It's snow, harvested in spring, stored in underground yakhchuls, and brought out in summer like a party trick. The guests lean over and inhale deeply. It's not for drinking, it's for scenting the air. You lean in too. Lemon, mint, a dash of pomegranate peel. Quirky tidbit, some Persian nobles used perfumed snow bowls as natural air fresheners and humidity regulators. As the ice melted, the scent would disperse, riding the breeze into shaded chambers and through lattice windows. You sit beside a column and observe. The garden isn't still anymore. It's active, humming with motion and mirth. Yet everything remains quiet. The noise is contained, wrapped by walls and softened by water and leaves. The breeze still moves with precision. Someone's positioned a wind catcher to funnel air toward the lounging royals. Another has opened a low door, probably leading to a sadab, to let the cool rise upward like incense. Historians still argue whether this level of architectural climate control was learned by imitation from older Mesopotamian practices, or whether it developed independently in Persia. Either way, it was taken to a high art here. You notice a servant lighting a small clay burner. A sweet smoke curls into the air. Frankincense? Maybe? The smoke isn't thick, it's deliberate, used not to repel, but to anchor the moment. Everything here serves a purpose. Even the oranges, placed on silver trays, are chosen for their cooling properties. According to traditional Persian medicine, fruits and herbs were classified by their temperament: hot or cold, watermelon, cooling, cinnamon, warming. You weren't just eating, you were balancing your internal climate. A musician begins plucking at an instrument shaped like a lute. The sound is delicate, like spun glass. Notes hover above the cooling pool before drifting toward the wind catcher, which picks them up and carries them deeper into the garden. You glance up and realize the sun is lower now. The shadows stretch longer. The breeze has shifted slightly sharper, as though readying the space for evening. A maid steps forward with a pitcher of something golden. She pours it into small ceramic cups, sweetened barley water with rose, a traditional summer tonic. The guests drink, then lean back, eyes closed, the way cats do when they know the sun won't dare bother them anymore. You take a cup when it's offered. The taste is subtle, slightly thick, like sipping memory. The caretaker meets your eye and gives a knowing smile. This is why the garden exists. Not to decorate, not even to survive, but to offer relief, ritualized, refined, luxurious relief from a world that sometimes burns too hot. You stroll back toward the main channel, where the windcatcher is now glowing with late light. The shadows of its slatted crown stretch long across the garden floor. The breeze is steady, not urgent, just consistent. The same breeze the royals felt, the same one the gardeners measured and tuned, and you realize the same breeze that's still used in parts of modern Iran today. Even as cities rise and machines hum, the Baghirs stand, catching wind, cooling rooms, humming their low notes into the ancient fabric of the air. You lie down on a patch of soft grass beside the water channel. The laughter of the royal group fades behind you. Somewhere, another poem is being read. But you don't need to hear the words. You're already inside the verse. The last of the sun slips behind the garden walls, and everything begins to change. Not dramatically, this garden doesn't do drama, but gradually. Like a page turning itself, the air cools further, not from the absence of heat, but because the systems you've come to understand, the water channels, the wind catchers, the thick walls, the scent bowls, are all now working at their most graceful. You rise slowly, stretch, and feel that familiar tug of curiosity. The caretaker has vanished again, which, by now, feels like part of the design. He appears when needed, and vanishes when you're ready to explore alone. You follow a dim path lit by the last orange streaks of sunlight, and approach a small, walled enclosure with a domed roof. Its shape is different, rounder, more sealed, and beside it, a shaft leading into the earth, narrow but not hidden. This is a yakchal. You've heard of it now, but to stand before it is another thing entirely. It looks like an upside-down bowl from a distance, mud brick, massive, silent. But it holds within it one of the greatest contradictions in desert life. Ice. Mainstream fact, yakchals were Persian ice houses. Structures designed to store ice through the summer, gathered in winter or made overnight in shallow pools nearby. The insulation was so effective, the ice could last for months. Some yakchals also stored food, medicines, and even delicate herbs used in temple offerings. You place a hand on its wall. It's cool, not cold, just settled, like the air has given up trying to rush anywhere and is finally at peace. A door creaks open, and you peek inside. Darkness, and then, once your eyes adjust, a faint glimmer. You're not sure if it's ice or just the stone reflecting starlight from a tiny vent above. But either way, it chills you in the best possible way. You sit at the threshold, not quite ready to enter, but also not ready to leave. The air here smells of clay, dampness, and something herbal, perhaps mint, perhaps centuries-old cumin. Quirky footnote. In some villages, ice from the yakchal wasn't just used for cooling. It was carved into sculptures for royal birthdays, or packed around clay vessels to chill pomegranate syrup before festivals. One traveller from the 10th century claimed to have seen frozen milk perfumed with nutmeg offered to a guest during high summer. And here you thought ice cubes were a modern invention. As you rest against the domed wall, another thought arrives, one that's been lingering for a while. Who really invented all this? The gardens, the Badyirs, the underground aqueducts, the wind-shaped poetry. Historians still argue about it, of course. Some say it was the Persians who first developed this symphony of wind and water, as early as 500 BCE, possibly even earlier under the Median Empire. Others suggest the Babylonians influenced the earliest aqueduct designs. There are whispers that Indian and even Egyptian engineers had similar systems that evolved independently. And what about the Arabs? Later dynasties adopted, expanded, and shared these techniques across the Islamic world, from North Africa to Andalusia. In fact, some of the most intricate gardens in Spain owe their design to Persian concepts. But did they invent them, or inherit brilliance? It's like asking who invented the breeze. Maybe the question is the point. You walk now in the dark, guided by the moonlight and memory. The breeze has slowed but not stopped. A steady breath still moves through the corridors and along the channel that glistens beneath your feet. You return to the main pavilion. The lanterns are lit, small flames flickering behind coloured glass, casting soft blues and greens on the white walls. A tray waits for you with a folded cloth and another small bowl. This time it's melon, cooled, lightly perfumed, eaten slowly, piece by piece. In the distance, you hear the faint clink of a stringed instrument. Maybe the court is still awake. Maybe you're just imagining the music, created by your own heartbeat. You lie down on one of the low stone beds built into the courtyard wall, covered with cushions that smell faintly of cedar. Above you, the sky is black velvet. Stars blink like someone has been stitching silver beads into a curtain. And even now, the wind is still moving. Through towers, over water, across stone, under tile, inside walls. It doesn't howl, it doesn't rush. It knows what it's doing. And you do too, now. Your head sinks into the cushion as if it's known your shape forever. The scent of cedar clings to the fabric, soft and grounding, like a lullaby stitched into thread. Around you, the garden hums its final notes, not loudly, not for applause, but like a song that never truly ends. The breeze is slower now, not lazy, just deliberate. You feel it against your forearm, drifting in from the wind catcher you passed earlier. It's cooler still. The air seems to descend rather than blow, falling in waves that settle across your body, pooling in the folds of your clothes. And even though you've walked the garden, drunk its chilled water, wandered its secret alcoves and sat inside its whispering walls, you realize now, you've only skimmed its surface. Because the real story of this garden isn't in the walls or the fountains or even the ingenious canats flowing silently beneath your feet. It's in the wind, always the wind, a system made to harness it, tame it, tune it, listen to it. You sit up once more, this time with purpose, not to explore, but to say goodbye. The stars are clearer now, and the shadows stretch longer. Even the night air carries a hush, as if the garden itself knows you're preparing to leave. But not before one last curiosity. The caretaker reappears, not from a doorway or a corridor, but somehow from between the hedges. You've stopped questioning how he does it. He nods toward a final corner of the garden, one you hadn't noticed before. There, a simple bench, a single tree, cypress, tall and dark, as if someone reached up and painted a vertical line against the stars. Beneath it, an inscription etched into stone, worn smooth by wind and time. You crouch to read. It doesn't name a king or a date, no conquest, no decree, just a phrase. The wind still knows the way. You sit, smile, and lean back against the stone. Because yes, it does. This system, this Persian choreography of heat and breath and shadow, wasn't just practical, it was philosophical. It was a belief in balance, in rhythm, in architecture that listens. Mainstream fact, some of these gardens still stand today, scattered across Yazd, Shiraz and Kashan. Many remain functional, others are silent, their qanats dry, their bajirs empty. But even the abandoned ones still echo when the wind is right. And in parts of modern Iran, Afghanistan and parts of North Africa, wind catchers and qanats are still built, updated, reinforced, sometimes electrified, but at heart, unchanged. Not as a museum exhibit or a nostalgic fantasy, but as a functioning reminder that intelligence doesn't have to shout, that design can be graceful, that coolness doesn't have to come from force. Sometimes, it just comes from listening to the wind and letting it tell you what it wants to do. So now, as the stars hold their places overhead and the last of the lanterns flicker into stillness, you find yourself sinking more deeply into the breath of this place. Your limbs soften, your thoughts slow, and your body gives in to that gentle persuasion the wind has been whispering all along. There's no rush here. The garden holds its cool like a secret, and you are part of that secret now. Every stone beneath you has remembered the heat of the day and let it go. Every wall around you knows where to send the breeze. Every leaf has stopped rustling, satisfied that its work is done. And you? You've walked in a place where humans didn't fight nature, they cooperated with it. You followed water underground, chased the scent of rosewater through air made by design, and let ancient stone guide your breath. Let it keep guiding you. Let the slow trickle of fountains echo softly in your thoughts. Let the curve of tile and shadow be the last image behind your eyes. Let the wind catcher, high above, keep spinning the air as you drift further inward. You are part of this rhythm now. Nothing to plan, nothing to solve, nothing to hold, only to be, only to breathe, only to sleep. In the days before the snow, there is a particular hush that settles across your village. It isn't fear, not exactly, but a kind of knowing, a collective breath held between seasons. No one says it, but everyone moves with the same quiet urgency. The earth is closing its eyes, and so must you. You look to the sky. The clouds drift low, heavy with the weight of something unspoken. Your boots leave shallow impressions in frozen dirt. Each step sounds louder now. Even the animals seem more alert. The goats press closer together. The chickens fluff their feathers and stay near their roosts, hesitant to wander. The last apples have been gathered. The dried fish is hung in rows along the beams of the smokehouse. Carrots and onions are buried in baskets of sand, stacked carefully against the wall. Bread is being baked daily now, dense and dark, meant to last. This is a time of preparation, but not just for the body. It is a time of readiness for the soul. Inside the longhouse, the warmth of the hearth pulls you in like an embrace. Smoke curls lazily toward the small opening in the roof. Faint embers glow from the coals beneath the cooking stones. And the smell, wood smoke, old wool, stewed barley, wraps around you like a memory. You sit for a moment by the fire, listening, breathing. Soon the snow will fall, and your world will shrink to these walls. The fields will disappear beneath a white sheet. The rivers will stiffen. The path to the forest will vanish. But the longhouse, it will endure. Its thick beams, shaped from shipwrecked trees and storm-felled giants, are older than you. Older than your father. Older than any story you know by heart. In winter, this house is not just a home. It is the last line between life and death. There is a rhythm to the cold season. It is slow, repeating, sacred. Each morning begins with the careful stirring of coals and the soft clinking of the iron pot as it's refilled with water. Each night ends with the same prayer whispered beneath shared blankets, a breath offered to gods and ghosts alike. You do not fight winter. You listen to it. You live with it. You learn from it. The elders say the gods designed it this way, that the long dark nights were not a punishment, but a gift, a chance to be still, to remember, to sit close and speak the old words while the world sleeps. And so, as the daylight fades earlier each evening, as the wind begins to cry through the branches of the pine trees outside, your people begin to turn inward, not just into the longhouse, but into themselves. This is when the stories begin. Not just any stories, but the deep ones, the ones carved into bone and carried in blood. Tales of Odin wandering the 9 realms in the shape of a tired old man, testing the hearts of strangers. Stories of Thor battling frost giants in a storm so fierce that thunder still remembers it. Songs of the Norns, weaving fate beneath the roots of Yggdrasil while the snow falls quietly above. These are not fairy tales. They are mirrors. They are warnings. They are instructions on how to live when the sun forgets to rise. You remember sitting by the fire as a child, your legs tucked under a fur, your eyes wide as your grandmother spoke of Skadi, the goddess of winter, of ice, of mountains and wolves, she who married a god but kept her homeland of snow, she who laughed with the wind and taught mortals how to survive the cold. You didn't understand the meaning then. But now, as you pull a woolen scarf over your nose and listen to the wind rake its claws across the roof, you begin to. Outside, the first snowflakes fall, software almost hesitant, like scouts testing the ground. You step to the threshold of the longhouse, your breath visible in the air. The flakes land on your cloak, tiny, perfect, and gone in a blink. You hold out your hand. One lands on your knuckle, melts instantly, and vanishes. It begins. Not a blizzard, not a storm, just the beginning of winter's breath. You stay there a moment longer, watching the world turn white, listening to the distant bleat of a goat, the muffled laugh of someone 2 houses down, the steady pulse of your own heart in your ears. Then you close the door, and the fire greets you like an old friend. Tomorrow, the snow will deepen, paths will vanish, boots will become heavier. The walls of the longhouse will hold the echo of everything, every cough, every song, every whispered secret in the night. But tonight is quiet. A cup of warm goat's milk in your hands, a child's snore in the corner, the gentle flicker of firelight dancing on the wooden beams, and the certainty that you are exactly where you are meant to be. This is not the end of the year. It is the beginning of stillness, a sacred season, a season for memory, a season for story. And as you pull your cloak closer and settle by the fire, your mind drifts not forward but inward. You are not waiting for spring. You are listening for winter's voice. It speaks in the creak of wood and the hush of snow. And if you are still enough, if you are warm enough, you just might understand what it's saying. You push the heavy wooden door shut behind you. It groans slightly on its hinges, then settles. Outside, the wind scours the world clean, sweeping snow in curling waves across the hard earth. But here, within these thick walls of timber and packed clay, the storm becomes something distant, a muffled hum, a reminder that you are inside and you are safe. Your eyes adjust to the flickering amber light. Shadows dance along the curved ceiling beams, thrown by the flames of the hearth at the center of the longhouse. The air smells of many things: wood smoke, damp wool, steaming broth, and the faint sweetness of dried herbs strung up overhead. This is not just a house. This is your world now. The longhouse is long and narrow, built like a ship turned upside down, as if it might one day lift and sail across the snowy plains. Thick wooden beams run its length, and above them the curved roof holds back the weight of the season. Every joint, every corner was crafted not with luxury, but with endurance in mind. Its walls are lined with a mix of wattle, clay, moss, and straw, layer upon layer of insulation made by careful hands. Not a single crack is left untended. You know the value of a sealed seam. One cold draught can undo a whole night's warmth. Along both sides of the hall are raised wooden platforms. These serve as beds by night, benches by day. They are layered with straw mats, sheep wool, and thick furs, fox, reindeer, and bear. The scent of animals lingers in them, but not unpleasantly. It is the scent of warmth, of shared lives, of survival. You pass by the fire pit slowly, allowing the heat to soak through your clothes. The hearth is never allowed to die. Even in the dead of night, someone rises to stir the embers. It is the pulse of the home, its heartbeat. If it goes out, something more than fire is lost. Above it hangs a blackened iron cauldron. Inside, tonight's stew simmers: barley, turnip, dried boar meat. The smell makes your stomach tighten in anticipation. Hunger is constant in winter, but here, hunger has rhythm. It comes and goes in familiar waves. You have learned to live with it. You do not waste. You eat with respect. You move past family members, each absorbed in some small act of winter living. Your father is seated on a stool, sharpening a knife with slow, circular movements. He nods as you pass, but does not speak. Your mother is seated near the back, sewing a patch onto a wool cloak. Her lips move silently as she counts her stitches. Beside her, your younger sister is sorting dried herbs into pouches: juniper berries, thyme, elderflower. In the far corner, your grandfather naps beneath a thick fir. His breath is steady. He's grown quieter in recent years, but when he speaks, the long house listens. You greet the animals too. A pair of goats rest in the far pen, their bellies round and their eyes half-lidded in the warmth. A few chickens perch sleepily on a beam overhead. In the very coldest nights, even the family's cow will be led in, adding her soft heat and slow breath to the shared air. This is not strange. This is winter, and in winter, everything living gathers together. The longhouse hums, not with noise, but with presence. The closeness of bodies, of breath, of shared space. Every movement is seen, every word is heard. Privacy does not exist. But loneliness does not either. You know the pattern of each person's day. Your uncle coughs before he laughs. Your sister always hums while she works. Your cousin fidgets with the leather straps on his boots, even when they're already tight. These are not just habits, they are threads in the larger weaving of your days. Each moment is stitched into the next. A spoon passed, a blanket shared, a smile exchanged without words. Near the hearth, there are objects of quiet beauty. A carved wooden cup, its handle worn smooth by generations of fingers. A bone comb, polished to a soft shine. A bowl filled with beads, amber, shell, glass from some distant shore. None of these things are new, but all of them are loved. They carry stories. They have passed from hand to hand, like warmth itself. You pick up a piece of driftwood shaped like a dragon, once part of a ship. It sits near the fire now, dry and worn. You trace its curves absent-mindedly. Once it roared across the sea. Now it keeps watch over this little fire. Time, you think, does not always take things away. Sometimes it changes them. Sometimes it settles them where they are most needed. The hours pass slowly in winter. The outside world has gone silent, save for the storm's whisper through the trees. But inside, life is soft and full. You eat, you mend, you speak, you rest. When the stew is ladled into bowls, you sit with your family on the benches, legs wrapped in furs. The fire pops softly as steam rises from the food. No one speaks at first. The first few bites are always reverent. Later, someone tells a story. It doesn't matter who begins. It only matters that the words come, slow and warm. A tale of the great wolf Fenrir and the binding chains. A riddle told by Odin in disguise. A memory of last winter when the goat escaped into the snow and returned with a raven riding its back. The room is filled with smiles, quiet laughter, and eyes reflecting the firelight. This is what the longhouse is meant for. Not just shelter, not just warmth, but closeness, community, continuity. It is here in these walls that you learn who you are, not by isolation, but by proximity. You are not separate from those around you. You are shaped by them, and they by you. In summer, you may wander, but in winter, you return. Again and again, to the fire, to each other. You settle on the bench beside your sister and pull the fur over your legs. The stew fills you with comfort. The voices around you fade into soft conversation. Someone begins to hum again. And for a long moment, you do nothing. You simply exist in the glow of the fire, the hush of snow beyond the walls, and the warmth of lives lived together in a single sacred space. Outside, the night grows colder, but inside, the fire holds steady. The longhouse sleeps with one eye open, its hearth still glowing, its people still breathing. This is home. This is winter. And in the north, they are the same thing. The days are short now, mere flickers of grey light between long stretches of darkness. Outside the longhouse, winter deepens its grip on the land. The snow no longer drifts softly. It settles, heavy and still, blanketing the earth in silence. The trees creak under its weight. The paths have disappeared. The world beyond the door has become distant and unknowable. But inside, there is life. Not loud or busy, but warm, constant, and near. You wake in the morning not to a bell or bird call, but to breath, the slow, sleeping rhythm of others all around you. Your younger brother is curled like a puppy beneath a fur pelt, his foot pressing gently against your leg. Your mother shifts beside the hearth, already stirring the fire to life. Sparks rise, and with them the soft sound of waking murmurs. Someone yawns, someone else coughs. It is not glamorous, it is not dramatic, but it is together. The longhouse, for all its simplicity, holds an entire world of people. Each one has their place, their quirks, their stories. Your father rises next. He groans softly as he stands, his back stiff from years spent hunched over axes and ploughs. He moves quietly through the space, nodding to your mother, ruffling your hair without needing to speak. He is a man of few words, but each action is a gesture of care. He fills water. He adjusts a loose beam above the fire. He adds another log, all without being asked. You've learned that love, here, often hides in work. Nearby, your sister helps measure grain into the pot. Her laughter is quick and light. She makes jokes even before her eyes are fully open. Your grandfather watches from his blanket, face creased with age, eyes alert. He sees everything. Every time someone spills a drop of water, every time a child forgets to thank the cook. He does not correct loudly, just with a glance. It's enough. The younger children begin to stir. They whisper beneath the furs, their voices rising and falling like wind through grass. Soon, someone will start a game with carved bone pieces, sliding them back and forth across the straw-covered bench. Soon, someone will cry, and someone will be comforted. This is the morning rhythm of winter. Slow, layered, shared. In summer, each person walks their own path. They hunt, they harvest, they travel to trade, or visit neighboring villages. But in winter, all paths return to the same hearth. And within that shared space, bonds deepen. Not because of grand moments, but because of repetition, because of knowing. Because of simply being with one another every day through hunger and cold and night and firelight. As the morning stretches into afternoon, the house breathes into itself. The chores are simple but important. You help your mother patch an old cloak. She shows you how to loop the thread twice through each stitch. It's not for beauty, she says. It's for strength. Across the room, your father and uncle sit carving wooden pegs for repairs. One of them hums. The other taps his rhythm with the point of a blade. They don't talk much, but you know this is how they bond. Quiet work, shared space, a lifetime of understanding carried in small glances. The children are busy untangling yarn. One has it wrapped around both arms, walking backward like a slow, deliberate spider. They giggle, they argue, then they giggle again. Even the goat, nestled in straw at the far end of the longhouse, lets out a low, contented sigh, reminding you that not all family members walk on two legs. After lunch, warm barley porridge with a slice of smoked fish, you sit near your grandfather. He's not as talkative as he once was. But today, he reaches into the small chest near his bedding and pulls out a smooth, rounded stone. It has a rune carved into it, you, the symbol of strength. Your great-grandmother gave this to me, he says, his voice rough as birch bark. She said it helped her stay brave during the long winters. You hold the stone in your hand. It's cool, solid. You feel the groove of the rune beneath your thumb. Will it help me too? You ask. He smiles, just a little. It might, but it's not the stone that gives strength. It's remembering who held it before you. You keep it close after that, not just as a charm, but as a thread, a link in a long chain of hands that once passed this same warmth from palm to palm. As evening settles, the longhouse becomes a single breath again. The fire crackles louder now, fed with larger logs. A stew simmers low and thick, its smell both comforting and faintly sharp with onion and dried herbs. You wrap yourself in furs, belly full, back warm, limbs heavy. Your uncle begins to tell a story. At first it's just a few words, a name, a place. But soon the others gather. They sit, listening, faces turned toward the flickering firelight. The children lean close. Your sister lays her head on your shoulder. The goat snorts once, then falls still again. The story is an old one, about two brothers who wandered into the forest in winter and found a cave that led to the edge of the world. About how they met a spirit made of snowflakes and shadow, and how only one returned, carrying the other in his memory. You've heard it before, but tonight it feels different, because winter sharpens not only the air, but also the heart. It slows time just enough that you begin to see each other more clearly, your father's hand resting gently on your mother's knee, your brother's eyes fluttering shut mid-listen, head bobbing with sleep, your grandfather's long, thin fingers still holding the edge of that rune stone. These people are not just kin, they are pieces of you. Their warmth is your warmth, their survival is yours. Later that night, you lie beneath layers of fur beside your siblings. The fire burns low, only embers now. The wind wails softly beyond the walls. It presses, prods, howls. But here inside, it cannot touch you. You hear the steady breathing of those around you. You feel the pressure of your sister's foot tucked against yours. You taste the salt of smoke still lingering on your tongue. And with your eyes half shut, you realize something simple and eternal. In this cold, unforgiving land, love does not announce itself with words. It is passed in bowls of stew. It is sewn into patches. It is told in old stories, held in old stones, and shared breath by breath through the long, frozen dark. This is your family, forged in cold, held together by fire. And in the deepest part of winter, that warmth is everything. The cold is no longer a stranger. By now, it has moved in completely, slipping beneath doors, biting at eaves, clinging to boots and cloaks like an old, unwelcome guest. It presses its weight against the longhouse, testing the seams and whispering through even the smallest gaps. But it does not find you defenseless. Your people have spent lifetimes learning how to greet winter, not as conquerors, but as companions who must live beside it. To keep warm is not merely a matter of comfort. It is survival, it is ceremony, it is craft, and it begins with fire. The hearth is your center. Everything radiates from it. Heat, light, life. Without it, the longhouse is just a wooden box. With it, it becomes a womb. The fire is never allowed to die. Even in sleep, someone must tend it. You've done it yourself, rising in the middle of the night, toes aching from cold, stumbling half awake to feed it a few slivers of birch bark and pine. There is an art to firekeeping. The logs must be chosen well. Pine burns quickly but with flair. Oak burns long and slow. Driftwood hisses and spits but brings a strange, salty warmth. You've learned to layer the kindling carefully. Fat wood curls at the base, dry twigs above, and a feathered log resting at just the right angle. Each morning you rake the coals and coax the fire back to life. You learn to listen to it. A healthy fire hums. An unhealthy one complains with smoke. But fire alone is not enough. Warmth must be held, not just made. And for that, your people turn to furs and fabric, to moss and fat, to secrets passed down from grandmothers and forgotten gods. Your cloak is made of thick wool, felted and rough. Beneath it, layers, an undershirt of linen, a tunic of coarser weave, a belt to trap heat at your core. Every layer matters. Every thread knows its place. Over your shoulders you wear fox fur, its reddish tones faded, but the warmth of its pelt still strong. At night you sleep beneath bearskin, heavy as a shield, soft as breath. Your mother stitched dried lavender into the seams. It smells faintly of summer, even now. The walls of the longhouse are lined with moss, not carelessly gathered, but selected from places deep in the forest where it grows thick and spongy. Pressed into cracks, layered with clay, it becomes insulation. You've helped do it yourself, your fingers numb and caked in mud, but proud. In winter, even the walls must wear coats. Animal hides hang across doorways like curtains. A felted wool curtain separates sleeping spaces. Each effort slows the creeping fingers of the frost, turning the longhouse into something closer to a living thing, breathing, layered, defended. Your boots are stuffed with dried grass, not because you lack better material, but because it works. The old trick of your ancestors, soft, absorbent, warm. Each day the grass is replaced. You rub your hands with seal fat, thick and oily, to to seal in warmth and guard against cracks. Your cheeks glow with it too. It glistens in firelight. At first it feels strange, greasy, but then it feels like armor. The cold cannot take what the old ways protect. You gather close when the nights are deepest, not just near the fire, but near each other. Everyone shares heat. Bodies become blankets. Arms become pillows. Even the animals contribute. You once slept with a goat curled at your back, and though she smelled, you thanked her quietly with a scratch behind the ears the next morning. Shared warmth is a kind of unspoken agreement, a pact that says, I will not let you freeze if I can help it. There are tricks too, old ones. You place hot stones near the fire, then wrap them in cloth and place them beneath the bedding before sleep. The heat lasts hours. Your uncle keeps a pouch of embers inside a clay pot, sealed, portable, always ready. He calls it his midnight sun. Your grandmother rubs warmed ale over your wrists before bed. The heat goes where the blood flows, she says. Warm the blood and the bones will follow. Even your songs have warmth in them, not just of feeling, but of breath. Soft lullabies hummed through pursed lips, filling the air with vibration and memory. A voice can heat a cold heart. A song can heat a cold night. And sometimes warmth comes from belief. You remember one night, when the snow piled up so high against the door that it could no longer open, your sister lit a small candle beside her bed, not for light, but for comfort. She said it kept the spirits at bay. Your grandfather nodded. The cold tries to find a way in, he said. Not just into our homes, into our hearts, but a light, even a small one, can remind the old things that we're not alone. You didn't ask what he meant. You just remembered it. And now, when the wind moans outside and the rafters creak under the weight of snow, you sometimes light a candle too. Not because it changes the temperature, but because it changes you. Warmth is not just physical in winter. It is emotional. It is communal. It is sacred. It is a hand on your back while you sleep. It is a smile shared over a bowl of steaming broth. It is the fire that never dies, even in your dreams. You once asked your mother why she kept the fire going, even when there was no one awake to enjoy it. She looked at you and said, "So the house remembers we are still alive." And so you keep it going, every spark, every thread, every fur, every breath. You protect the warmth the same way your ancestors did, by tending it, feeding it, honoring it. Because in this land of frost and silence, to be warm is not simply to be comfortable. It is to survive. It is to connect. It is to live well, even in the darkest night. Tonight, as you prepare for bed, you pull the fur up to your chin and curl into the shape of yourself. You feel the fire's breath on your cheeks, the shared body heat of family all around you, and the heavy stillness of a winter night pressing against the walls. You are not afraid. You are not cold. You are warm, because you have learned what the old ones knew. That warmth, when shared, multiplies, and that in the north, even fire has a memory. Night has fallen like a heavy fur cloak draped across the sky. The wind hisses against the longhouse walls, swirling snow across the rooftops, clawing at the thatch with icy fingers. Inside, though, the fire glows, steady, soft, golden orange, like the heart of a sleeping sun. You sit near it, cross-legged on a fur, the heat gently warming your face and knees. The flames crackle, shifting shadows across the wooden beams like old spirits stretching in the light. It is time for stories, not out of boredom or for entertainment, but because in winter, stories are more than words. They are warmth, they are memory, they are power. The old ones always begin the same way, not with once upon a time, but with a breath, a long, slow inhale, and then words that seem older than the voice that speaks them. Before fire, before man, before even the sky, there was only ice and darkness and a great empty silence. Everyone leans a little closer. The children lie in a row, eyes wide beneath their woolen hoods. Your sister has her hands folded on her lap, face lit gently by the firelight. Your grandfather speaks tonight, his voice rough, rhythmic, like water dripping from a stone. He doesn't just tell the tale, he becomes it. In the beginning, he says, there was a vast chasm, Ginnunga Gap. On one side, fire, on the other, ice. When they met, steam rose, and from the mist was born Ymir, the first giant, and Audumla, the cow who licked the ice for salt. You've heard this before. And yet, you haven't. Because every winter, the story sounds different. The winds outside give it a new shape. The firelight casts it in new colour. The way your grandfather speaks tonight, slow, heavy with pauses, makes you feel the tale in your bones. From Ymir's body, the gods crafted the world. His flesh became earth, his blood the seas, his skull the sky, his bones the mountains. The room is utterly still. Only the fire speaks alongside him. Then comes the part you love most. Odin, Vili, and Ve, the first gods, brothers. You picture them as travellers with cloaks heavy with frost, eyes sharp as ice, voices like thunder through trees. They carve order out of chaos. They give names to things. They breathe life into mortals, into you. And Odin, he gave you breath, your grandfather says, pointing gently toward you. So you may never forget it is not just your lungs that draw the air, but your soul. The others nod quietly. Your sister's eyes are glassy with wonder. The wind howls again, just once, and fades, as if it too is listening. Storytime by the fire is not just for children. It is not just myth. It is teaching. It is inheritance. Tonight your uncle tells the next tale, this time of Thor, the Thunderer. Not a heroic version, a human one. He once tried to drink the sea, your uncle says, grinning. He thought it was just a giant's drinking horn. But when he lifted it to his mouth, the oceans shifted. The tides bent. He nearly swallowed the world. Laughter ripples across the longhouse. Not mockery, just recognition. Thor, for all his might, is fallible, clumsy, proud, brave, in some strange way, familiar. You see him in your cousin's fiery temper, in your own clumsy courage, in your father's quiet protection. The gods, your uncle says, were never meant to be perfect, only real. Another log is added to the fire. Sparks rise like tiny stars, brief and beautiful. Now it's your aunt's turn. She speaks of Skadi, goddess of the mountains, daughter of frost giants, the one who chose a husband by the sight of his feet but found the wrong one, the one who laughed only when the trickster Loki tied goat entrails between his legs and danced for her. Skadi, who walked alone through the snow, who claimed her space among the gods not with charm, but with ice and strength. Skadi taught us how to walk alone, your aunt says softly. She showed us that winter is not weakness. It is power. It is patience. It is beauty with teeth. Your sister listens to this one the most. She has always loved Skadi. Even you take your turn. You recite a short tale you memorized as a child, the one about the squirrel Ratatoska who runs up and down Yggdrasil, the world tree, spreading gossip between the eagle at the top and the dragon at the roots. Everyone laughs. It's a silly tale, but there is wisdom in it. Even the smallest creatures shape the world. Later, your grandfather tells one more. His voice is lower now, almost a whisper. Baldur, the god of light and love, once dreamed of his death. His mother begged all things in the world to never harm him. Stone, metal, beasts, fire. All agreed, but she forgot the mistletoe. You know what comes next. You almost say it with him. And so Loki, jealous and clever, fashioned an arrow from mistletoe. He gave it to Baldur's blind brother, and Baldur died. Silence. Even the fire seems to hush. And with him, your grandfather says, the world began to dim. The first shadow of Ragnarök touched the gods, all because of a single forgotten thing. You breathe slowly. You've heard the tale 100 times, but tonight it settles deep. A reminder that even the light can fall. That even the gods are not eternal. That darkness always comes. but so does the chance to tell the story. You sit quietly as the fire burns lower. Faces fade into silhouettes. The longhouse breathes gently around you. The snow presses at the walls like a tired ghost. You hear only the occasional crackle of wood and the slow, steady rhythm of breath and memory. Someone begins to hum, a soft lullaby you don't know the words to, but understand anyway. You close your eyes and picture the gods walking through the snow, some tall and radiant, some broken and afraid, some laughing, some whispering, all of them made of ice and fire, just like you. In this house, under this roof, you are not alone. You are wrapped in story, cradled in myth, protected by names older than language. And tomorrow, the tales will be told again. Not because they change, but because you do. You wake in the dark, not because someone stirs beside you, not because the fire has gone cold, but because something outside is still, too still. You lift your head from the fur, ears open to the hush. The fire behind you breathes softly, its light dim and red like a sleeping eye. The room is quiet, your family bundled and warm, resting in peace. But outside the longhouse walls, something ancient walks. You don't hear it. You feel it. A presence in the snow, a weight in the night. The kind of silence that leans in too close. In the north, winter is not just a season. It is a door. A time when the walls between this world and others grow thin, when the snow carries footprints that vanish mid-path, and dreams bleed into waking hours. Your ancestors knew this, and so do you. During daylight, the village still smiles. People sweep snow from roofs. Children chase each other around the longhouse. Wood is chopped. Meals are cooked. Everything feels real. But once the sun dips behind the trees and the sky turns from pale silver to blue-black, the rules shift. Voices lower. Candles are lit sooner. Doors are checked twice. And certain things are never spoken aloud after dusk. Your grandfather once said, "Winter makes the earth remember its dead." You didn't understand him then. But now, lying here in the dark, you begin to. You've heard the stories all your life. Of Draga, the undead, the restless, the greedy spirits who cling to what they once owned. They rise from barrows in winter, it said, because the cold slows everything else down, makes it easier for them to move unnoticed. You don't fear them, exactly. But you leave a bowl of porridge outside each Yule, just in case. Just in case something hungry is watching. Just in case it once had a name. Just in case it remembers your family and the warmth it lost. Then there are the landvettir, the land spirits, not evil, not cruel, but powerful. They live in the hills, in the forests, beneath the stones. You do not build without asking them. You do not spit on the earth in winter. You do not speak their names unless you mean to honor them. In spring and summer, you might forget. But not now. Not when the woods are quiet and the wind whistles like it carries messages not meant for human ears. Sometimes, the dreams come. Strange, vivid, and heavy with meaning. You've dreamt of ravens circling above your longhouse, of wolves walking upright through the snow, of women with long white hair whispering riddles into your ear. You wake gasping, heart pounding, unsure if you've seen a vision or simply the imagination of a restless mind. Your mother tells you not to fear them. Dreams in winter, she says, are not accidents. They are visitors. Listen closely. Some come from the gods. Some from your blood. She wraps her arms around you gently when you speak of them. She does not laugh. In this season, nothing is dismissed. Not the dreams, not the knocks on the door with no one there, not the feeling that something just passed by the window. Even the animals seem to know. The goats grow restless on certain nights. The chickens refuse to roost. Once, the dog stood at the threshold and growled at the darkness, ears flat, tail low. Your uncle rose, walked to the door, and whispered an apology. He scattered a few herbs outside, closed the door again. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. You have your own rituals, a pouch of salt beneath your blanket, a charm of iron near your bedpost, a rune carved in the ash by the fire pit. For protection, pointed upward like an open hand, warding off the unseen. Some nights you hum softly before sleep. Not a song, exactly, just sound. Your way of letting the dark know, I am here, but I am not afraid. But it's not all fear. The spirit world is not only filled with threats. There is awe there too. Sometimes you step outside when no one else stirs. You pull your cloak around your shoulders, your boots crunching in the snow, and look upward. The sky above is velvet dark, stitched with stars. The moon hangs pale and distant, its light cold but not cruel. Your breath clouds the air, then disappears. And in that stillness, you feel it, the land breathing, the snow listening, the night holding stories not yet told. Some believe the ancestors walk these paths in winter, that they return to check on the living, to sit by the fire in silence, to brush your cheek while you sleep. Not ghosts, not hauntings, just memories come home. You find that idea comforting, that somewhere, in the dark beyond the walls, your great-grandmother watches the smoke rise, that the old warrior whose axe you now own rests under a tree, listening to the stories being told about him, that nothing is ever truly lost, only quiet, only waiting. Your village follows small customs to keep the balance. A sliver of bread is always left uneaten. A candle burns near the window when a child is sick. Ashes from the hearth are sprinkled at the threshold every few days, to remind whatever walks outside that this home is protected, blessed, watched over. And during Yule, a chair is left empty by the fire, not for decoration, but for whoever comes back for a visit, unseen. In the north, they do not fear the dark. They respect it. They know that the silence of snow hides more than footprints, that the longest nights are filled not with nothing, but with everything. The fire doesn't just warm your skin, it guards your spirit. It lights a small circle in the dark where life continues. Beyond that circle, mystery, myth, memory. You return to bed now, pulling the fur up to your chin, the fire crackling gently behind you. Your eyes flutter closed. But before sleep takes you, you whisper a quiet blessing. Something old, something nameless, something just in case. Because tonight, like every winter night, you are not alone. And whatever walks beyond the edge of firelight knows that you remember. The scent comes before the sound. You smell it before you hear the bubbling of the pot, before the wooden ladle scrapes the side of the cauldron. Even before your mother lifts the lid, it's already there, soft, earthy, rich with barley, onion, dried herbs, and the promise of warmth. In the dead of winter, food is more than food. It's memory, it's comfort, it's hope, made edible. This evening's meal is simple, like most nights in the longhouse during the coldest months. A thick stew, barley boiled until it breaks down into softness, laced with dried boar meat from the autumn hunt, a few root vegetables still surviving in the cool storage pit. You sit on the bench closest to the hearth, holding the bowl between your hands, letting its heat seep into your fingers. Around you, others settle in, each with their own portion. No one speaks much at first. The first few bites are always quiet, reverent, as if, in this silence, you're honoring something older than hunger. The land that gave it, the hands that preserved it, the fire that cooked it. Eating in winter is not like eating in summer. There are no fresh berries, no herbs clipped straight from the field, no roasted game sizzling over a spit with grease dripping into the fire. Those days belong to the sun. Now, food is what survives. What was dried, salted, smoked, buried, and stored. What was prepared with the knowledge that it might be months before you see a green sprout again. And yet, there is richness here, not in quantity, but in care. Every ingredient has been chosen with intention. Every step in preparation has been measured and passed down, not from cookbooks, but from memory, voice, and watchful eyes. You learned how to dry mushrooms from your aunt, how to hang fish so the smoke would carry into its bones, how to store onions in braided ropes, the ends dipped in wax, how to make butter stretch longer by whipping it with goat milk and salt. These tricks are not written, they are lived. There are days when hunger hums louder than you'd like, when the stew is thinner, when the bread is harder, when the piece of dried meat you gnaw feels more memory than nourishment. But no one complains, not seriously, because the cold teaches gratitude in quiet, consistent lessons. Every bowl filled is a small victory. Every bite swallowed is a blessing. Even the smallest meal, eaten together near the fire, feels like a feast if your bones are cold enough. Still, there are real feasts, even in winter, especially in winter. Because when the dark presses too long, your people answer it with light, with music, with food made not just to nourish the body, but to lift the soul. Yule is the brightest of them all. 12 nights of firelight, of storytelling, of ritual and remembrance, each one marking the rebirth of the sun, the slow turning back toward warmth. You celebrate not because you have extra, but because celebrating is what pulls you through. During Yule, the best stores are brought out. The honey mead, sweet and sharp, aged in clay jugs and saved for this moment. The dried apples, softened in warm water and stirred with spice. The blood sausage, thick with oats and fat, dark and filling. Flatbreads cooked on stone slabs, warm and soft beneath your fingers. A preserved leg of lamb, cut carefully, sparingly, but savoured deeply. The fire burns longer. The songs go later. Even the goats seem to know it's a special time, bleating more softly as if not to interrupt. You remember one Yule when a traveller shared dried figs, brought from far to the south across the sea. You had never tasted anything like them, sweet and soft like sunlight, preserved in skin. You've thought of them every year since, not because of their taste, but because they reminded you the world was bigger than the snow outside your door. Not every winter has enough. There are years when the stores run low, when the grain spoils in damp baskets, when a storm collapses the drying rack, when a sickness claims the man who knew how to catch fish through ice. In those winters, the hunger walks with you. It lays beside you. It sharpens your senses, your patience, your choices. You eat smaller portions. You skip a meal so a child can eat. You boil bones twice. You stretch turnip skins into stew. And yet, somehow, still, you endure. Because endurance is the oldest recipe. The children learn early not to waste. Crumbs are gathered. Ashes are sifted for dropped bits. Even eggshells are crushed and mixed into compost for spring. Your grandmother once said, "Leave nothing for the spirits unless you mean to offer it." You never leave your plate unfinished. To eat in winter is not an act of luxury. It is an agreement with the land, with your kin, with the past. To honour what was taken, to appreciate what was spared. Tonight, after the stew, someone passes a bowl of smoked goat cheese. It's sharp, crumbly, and rare this late in the season. You take only a small pinch, pressing it into your bread. The flavour blossoms in your mouth, earthy, salty, warm. Your sister smiles. Your cousin hums. Your mother wipes her hands and leans back, satisfied. This is a quiet kind of joy. Not loud, not showy, just shared. Afterwards, someone brings out a bit of honeyed ale, diluted with warm water. It's passed from hand to hand, each person sipping once, maybe twice. You raise the cup to your lips and close your eyes. It tastes like firelight, like memory, like the patience of your ancestors folded into sweetness. And when the cup returns to its place, and the fire settles into its low, steady rhythm, you exhale fully, for the first time in hours. You are full, not just of food, but of something older, something deeper, a sense of belonging, of survival, of life shared around a single pot. Outside, the snow continues. It always does. But inside, you are wrapped in more than furs. You are wrapped in what you've made, what you've stored, what you've saved for this moment. A meal is never just a meal. It is a circle, a connection, a small warmth in a long, cold night. And tonight, at least for now, that warmth is enough. The days drift like snowflakes, slow, quiet, and nearly indistinguishable from one another. There are no clocks in the longhouse, no hours to mark with bells or sunbeams. Time passes not in minutes, but in motions, the tightening of thread, the smoothing of wood, the soft creak of a beam as it settles in the cold. You no longer count the days of winter. You live them. After breakfast, oats thickened with goat's milk and a smear of preserved berries, you gather your tools from the storage chest. A bit of bone, a bit of twine, a spool of thread wound around a stick. Nothing ornate, nothing new, but they fit your hand like they've always belonged. Your mother is already working. She sits by the fire, a patch of fur stretched over her knees, needle in hand, fingers flying with practiced grace. She does not look up as she speaks. Use 2 knots at the start, one for the stitch, one for the memory. You nod. You've heard it before, but winter makes familiar things new again. Your uncle works in the corner of the room, bent over a piece of wood. He's carving something. A ladle, maybe, or part of a sled. You're not sure, but the sound of the blade against the grain is rhythmic and soothing, like wind through reeds. Your sister spins yarn from goat hair, foot tapping gently to a tune she hums under her breath. It is not a song anyone taught her, it simply came. The dog sleeps nearby, curled in a patch of sunlight, twitching occasionally in a dream you cannot enter. In winter, movement changes. There is no ploughing, no fishing, no great voyages. There is only what can be done from the warmth of the longhouse, and this becomes enough. You learn to mend what you once would have thrown away. You patch your boots with scraps of hide. You twist fraying rope into usable lengths. You scrape soot from the cooking stones. Every act is a return, a renewal, a whisper to the house. We are still here, we still make. And in this quiet labour, you feel close to your ancestors, to their fingers, to their fire, to the slow, sacred heartbeat of the season. Sometimes the work becomes ritual. Your grandfather sharpens his knife each morning before the sun has risen, even if there's nothing new to carve. He says it keeps his hands honest. Your aunt brushes each animal in the longhouse before she eats her own meal. Respect their warmth, she says. They give more than we know. And once a week, on the day you burn the last scraps of bark in the fire, your mother sprinkles a little salt at the threshold and says a few words beneath her breath. You don't know what the words mean, but they sound like safety. You spend an afternoon braiding straw, not because you need straw rope, but because your hands need purpose. It's a simple task. Your fingers move without much thought, over and under, twist and pull, but as the braid lengthens, something changes. You begin to notice small variations, the way the straw bends, the texture of each piece. Your movements grow more intentional. You realize that even the plainest things can be shaped with care, that even winter can be beautiful if approached slowly. The children in the longhouse play their games, not loud games. There isn't space or tolerance for that. They carve tiny animals from leftover bones and race them along the benches. They pretend their blankets are dragon cloaks or sled sails. They whisper riddles to each other, giggling when one can't answer. You watch them, remembering your own winters as a child. You see how they learn patience without knowing it, how they grow strong not by rushing, but by waiting for the sun, for the thaw, for the stories to return. One evening, your father teaches you how to carve runes, not for language, but for meaning. He shows you the symbol for protection, the elk's edge, drawn like an open hand, then the symbol for endurance, I, the ice rune, thin, cold, still, but unbreaking. We do not carve them only onto stone, he says. We carve them into the self. You trace the lines again and again, not to remember, to become. Sometimes you sit with nothing to do, no task, no purpose, just being. You listen to the fire, to the breath of sleeping kin, to the wind playing along the thatch like fingers across a harp. And in those moments, something quiet settles into you, not boredom, stillness, the kind of stillness that teaches you who you are when you are not doing. Your dreams change in these weeks. They are slower, thicker, sometimes wordless. You dream of weaving things you've never seen, of rivers made from thread, of stars tied to your wrists, of wolves walking through frost-covered halls made of woven wool. You do not understand them, but when you wake, they leave behind a kind of warmth, as if you'd visited someplace very old and very far and brought back something invisible but true. By late afternoon, the light fades. You pack away your tools. You brush off the table. You sweep the straw back into the corners. Each act is small, but each one adds to something greater. The house feels more yours. The hours feel more full, and though the snow continues to fall, you no longer feel trapped. You feel held by rhythm, by routine, by hands that came before yours, doing the same things in the same space, with the same quiet faith. And as you curl beneath the fur once again, listening to the house settle into sleep, you whisper a small word of thanks. Not for wealth, not for excitement, but for time, for the slow days, for the careful hands, for the rituals that stitch each hour to the next like thread through wool. This winter does not move quickly, but it moves deeply. And in that depth, you have found something precious. A life made not of grand deeds, but of small, sacred repetitions. Night falls early in the north. By mid-afternoon, the light has already softened into blue-grey shadows. By evening, the longhouse is lit only by the hearth and a few flickering oil lamps, tiny stars within a world of wood, wool, and breath. You feel it as the hours stretch, your limbs heavy, your thoughts quieter, your heartbeat slowing to match the rhythm of the flames. It is time to sleep, not to escape, but to enter something deeper. In the heart of winter, sleep is not just rest, it is ritual, it is travel. You settle down beneath layers of fur, the heat of bodies nearby blending with your own. The benches become beds, and the benches are full. Your family, curled side by side like animals in a den. No one sleeps far from the hearth. Fire is life, and you sleep where the life is warmest. The furs are thick, bear, fox, reindeer. You've known them since childhood. You can tell which is which by scent alone. The straw beneath you creaks softly as you shift your weight. Your wool tunic remains on. No one undresses fully in winter. Cold finds bare skin fast, and comfort comes from being covered in more than sleep. Your mother murmurs a final word of blessing to the hearth. Your father exhales slowly, already half lost to dreams. The baby cousin next to you kicks gently in her sleep, small feet pressing into your ribs, warm and thoughtless. You close your eyes and begin the slow descent. Sleep in the longhouse is a shared thing, not a private act, but a communal one. Everyone's breath rises together, soft clouds in the firelight. The dog snores from the foot of the bed. Somewhere near the goat pen, a chicken shifts in her sleep. The silence is never full. It is always filled with warmth, with presence, with the echoes of dreams being born. Sometimes, before the deeper sleep comes, you listen. You listen for stories carried in silence. The way your sister whispers nonsense in her dreams. The small sound your grandfather makes, like a prayer lost in translation. The creak of the wall as it settles, like an old spirit sighing. These are the sounds that keep you company. They say the soul wanders at night, that it steps out through the mouth and drifts like breath into other realms. You believe it. You've felt it. Your dreams come slowly tonight. You first see the tree, tall, endless, rooted in stars. You know it as Yggdrasil, the world tree. You are beneath its branches, and the snow falls in reverse, drifting up instead of down. A deer walks past you, eyes golden. It nods, as if to say, you know the way. And then you are elsewhere. You stand on a frozen lake. Beneath the ice, shapes move, not threatening, just watching. A voice calls your name from somewhere far, far off. You do not answer. You only listen. And when the dream ends, you are back in your bed, the fire still glowing faintly, your fingers curled tight into the fur. You are not afraid, only changed. You've always known winter dreams are different. The elders say they are closer to the gods, that when the nights grow long, the barriers grow thin, that in sleep we remember who we were before we were born and who we might be still. Some mornings, your sister wakes crying, not from fear, but from missing something. A face she saw in a dream, a place she no longer remembers. Your mother strokes her hair and hums softly. It was only a dream, she says, but everyone knows. It was more than that. In the cold months, people dream of things they've never seen, of golden halls and wolves made of starlight, of women with spinning wheels turning darkness into thread, of fires that speak, of gods that weep. You once dreamed of a mountain that breathed. Your cousin dreamed of sailing to a land made entirely of ice that rang like bells when walked upon. No one questions these dreams, no one laughs, because in the north, dreams are messages, and the dark is a messenger. You remember what your grandfather told you once, as you woke from a particularly vivid night. The dream world and the waking world are like two longhouses. You live in both. You just forget the other one when you walk through a door. You didn't understand then. You do now. Each night, you return to something you didn't know you missed. Each morning, you bring back something, unseen but heavy in your chest. Tonight, the fire dies slower than usual. Its glow flickers against the rafters, casting strange shadows. You watch it as your thoughts fade, images of carved runes, snow-dusted meadows, laughter around the hearth. You remember stories told just nights ago. You remember hands holding bowls, songs hummed low. You remember that you are not alone. Even in sleep, you are wrapped in history, in blood, in gods, in dreams older than language. Your breath slows, your limbs grow heavy, and just before you sink completely, you whisper a name. No one you know, no one real, just a name from the dream. It leaves your lips like a blessing, or a promise. Then sleep takes you, and the world turns. In the stillness of the longhouse, nothing moves. And yet, so much happens. The fire breathes, the spirits drift, the sleepers wander, and beneath it all, the night watches. Patient, protective, eternal. Morning arrives slowly. Not with the brilliance of sunrise or the clamour of bells, but with a soft light slipping through the smoke hole, like a whisper, like a memory, carefully placed. You stir beneath the furs, your body still heavy with dreams. The breath around you is warm, soft. Someone shifts beside you, your sister perhaps. Someone sighs. The fire has not gone out. It never does. The embers glow beneath the ash, quiet and red, still alive. You watch your mother rise in silence. She kneels beside the hearth, brushing back the coals, gently feeding it slivers of bark, dry twigs, breath. The flame flickers once, then again, then grows. Not big, not fast, but steady, grateful. You understand now. It's not just the fire she's tending, it's continuity, the link between this morning and the last, between the old year and the new, between the ancestors and the unborn. Winter is not over. The snow still lies deep outside. The wind still curls around the longhouse, moaning through the eaves. The paths remain hidden. The world beyond remains hushed, but something has shifted. You feel it in the way your limbs move, not sluggishly now, but with rhythm. You rise, and so does the day, not quickly, but fully. The tasks are the same as yesterday. Check the stores, turn the smoked meats, tend the animals, clean the hearth, stir the pot. But they feel different now, more deliberate, more known. You have settled into winter, not as a prisoner of it, but as part of it. You are no longer resisting the season. You are living inside it. Later that morning, your grandfather sits you down and places a carved object in your hands. It's small, maybe the length of your palm, a figure shaped from wood, a person holding a flame, You turn it over carefully, tracing its edges. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. It's a reminder. Nanda Fursai, that the fire, this fire, their fire, lives not only in hearths, but in hands, in memory, in you. You've begun to understand how much winter changes you, not in grand, sudden ways, but gently, subtly. Like how your voice grows quieter when you speak indoors, or how your hands move slower, but more surely, or how you now listen longer before you speak, because winter has taught you that silence holds wisdom too. You know how to be still, how to wait, how to endure, and how to do so without fear. As the day moves on, the longhouse hums with its usual rhythm. A new fur is sewn, a handle is repaired. Children laugh softly over a game drawn in ash on the floor. The stew pot bubbles again, and above it all, the smoke rises, not as a cry, but as a signal, a flag. We are here. We are alive. We are warm. That evening, your father tells a final story. No gods, no giants, just a tale of an old man who lived through 70 winters and taught his granddaughter to build a fire from memory alone. He told her, your father says, you don't need to see the flame to believe in it. You only need to remember the warmth. Everyone is quiet, not because they're sad, but because they know it's true. The fire lives in more than wood. That night, before you sleep, you step outside. Just for a moment. The cold is sharp. It kisses your cheeks, bites at your nose, whispers down your collar. But you don't retreat. You stand there, watching your own breath drift upward like prayer. Above you, the sky is impossibly wide. The stars glimmer like frost frozen into the heavens. You think of Skadi, of Odin, of the snow spirits watching from the woods, of the warmth behind you, of the dreams still ahead. And for a brief, perfect moment, you feel the vastness of it all. The season, the stories, the fire, it all goes on. You return to the longhouse, and the door closes behind you with a gentle click. The fire greets you once more. You lie down beside your family. The furs feel warmer tonight. The breath around you feels closer. The dark will last a while longer. But you are not afraid of the dark, because you carry something now. Something learned in silence and shared over time. The knowledge that the cold does not break you, it shapes you, and that within the darkest months something glows that never goes out. The fire never truly dies. Not when you tend it. Not when you remember it. Not when you pass it forward. And as your eyes close, you sleep in peace. Not because the cold is gone, but because you have learned to live beside it. Warm, together, enduring, always.